Okay, so we are now at a time when we know winter is coming. I mean, it's already getting cold. So, you know, as far as the garden is concerned, it's over, right?
Yes, it is.
This year is done.
Yep.
Okay, so what can people do at this stage of the game? Or are they too late to sort of, you know, because we've already had some frost, right?
Just been getting a frost. We've had a late frost this year, but yeah, we had a frost a couple nights ago, and we're going to get another one tonight. So it's time to close everything down.
It's now okay. So what do people do? What are some of the things they can do to make sure that come spring, it comes back nice and beautiful?
A couple things. We'll start with perennials first, because this, you know, and perennials basically there's two ways to look at them. This is totally herbaceous, which means it dies completely back to the ground. Some of them are semi-evergreen. So if you're not sure, just leave it till spring.
What do you call it? Herbaceous?
Herbaceous means it dies back. So basically what you're going to do, and you do this for a couple of reasons. You're going to come in and you're going to cut these all back. Just cut it back like this. It's easy cleanup.
Right.
Some people wait till spring, but I like to do it in the fall.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. You know, you get rid of any diseases, and insects will be, put into your compost, or get rid of it. And the other thing is, we have a big problem with voles up here.
What are voles?
It's a short-eared mouse. People mix them up with moles, but it's a short-eared mouse. And in the winter, they go underground and chew the roots off things, or they come in and chew the bark off of your shrub. So cleaning up the garden, and then you put down, let me show you right here. This is Lomax, which is a castor oil. It's a safe product to put down in the garden. I just did my garden the other day. And this goes into the ground and discourages the voles from eating the roots.
Where do you put this?
Right around all your plants.
Right around all your plants.
Yep, and through your garden.
Now you do this cutting mechanism with plants like this. What other kind of plants do you do?
Well, if you have other ones such as the heuchera, the coral bells, foxglove, this salvia here, these are still green. I'm going to leave these for the winter.
Okay.
I'm not going to cut these down.
But they'll remain green for the rest.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if you're not sure, and a lot of people aren't, I just leave them for the winter.
Okay.
It's not going to hurt.
All right.
Then, two things you want to do to get your garden ready for next year. Compost. Put about an inch of compost over your whole garden, especially if you have any type of soil, and that will slowly work into the soil to build up the nutrients. The other thing is we fertilize in the fall now. It used to be they didn't, but now we use an organic fertilizer such as a plant tone, and we do a half strength, you can do it now, over your whole garden. And that will get it ready for next year,
How
too.
much do you put in? Some people have an issue with how much you
just read your instructions, whatever it says half strength.
Okay.
With products like this, you can't really do much harm if you overdo it a little bit, because it's organic and a slow release.
Okay, I see what you mean.
If it's acid loving, then we go with the holly tone.
Okay. Acid loving meaning what? Like
your rhododendrons, your holly, things like that like an acid soil.
Well, what do you do with, let's say, if you have rose bushes? What do you do?
Now, roses, I don't have any to show you, but most rose bushes, the shrub roses like the knockouts, the climbers, we tend to leave for the winter. The only thing I like to do is when the ground freezes, set some soil aside and put a mound of soil over the base of the rose. That keeps the base nice and frozen and protects it for the winter. Tea roses, floribundas, grandifloras, those you do cut back to about 1 foot.
Yeah.
And then again, we have like rose, cones made out of cardboard, wax cardboard you put over the top after you put the soil on, and then you can fill those with like pine needles or straw to give them a little extra protection, because they're kind of borderline up here in spots.
So it's to protect them from the winter?
Yeah, from the winter desiccation and freezing and thawing. Because what does the most damage a lot of times, especially with perennials, our winters are so erratic now. So they freeze and thaw. The ground thaws a little bit, and then it freezes, and it moves. So by mulching, putting the soil over, it keeps it nice and cold all winter and stable.
Okay. Okay, so last year you said that, we had some serious damage.
Well, what happened last year, we have basically two types of shrub. Evergreens, deciduous. Deciduous means they drop their leaves. They're pretty much sealed up for the winter. They're going to be, as long as you planted the right plant in the right place, they should be fine. Evergreens, on the other hand, can lose moisture over the winter. You get a warm, windy day, even a cold, windy day. Last year it was the cold winds, and it pulls the moisture out of the leaves. And if the ground is frozen, the moisture can't be replaced. So one important thing is to make sure all your evergreens, needle evergreens like your pines, your spruces, hemlocks, your broadleafs like holly, rhododendrons, boxwood, water them late in the season before the ground freezes.
Late in the season?
Yeah, and it depends on the weather.
How much water?
A good soaking. We always tell people if you're putting a soaker hose, like an hour and a half on it, but a good soaking. Fortunately, this past few weeks we've had some good rains, but you want that soil going in wet. moist, I should say,
and
moist.
And when it freezes,
it won't. And then the other thing you want to do is mulch, bark mulch, evergreens. I use pine needles. Put a couple inches of mulch. Leave a little space here and a couple inches of mulch before the ground freezes, so that ground won't freeze quite as fast. But on the other hand, once it does get really winter, we have to protect these from freezing. So what we do is we use a product called wilt-proof.
Okay.
And what this does, it's an anti-desiccant, which means it stops the plant from desiccating. You go out on a warm day in November, should be around 40 degrees in the morning, and just do top and bottom of the leaves, and that really helps prevent the moisture loss.
Okay.
The other.
So you do this with all
broadleaf evergreens.
Nothing, the pine needles.
No, just the broadleaves, the boxwood, the hollies, rhododendrons.
You give it a good wet.
Yep.
Okay.
You're going to do it to almost like a drip point.
Okay.
You can get it in a concentrate or you can get it in a pre-mix.
Okay.
The other second way, if you have an area, if it's newly planted, if it's a windy area, we can also burlap it. Because what you're trying to do is keep the wind and the sun off the plant during the winter. Those are the two things that pull the moisture out. Wind tends to be worse. So you can also put a burlap screen around it. You can do both, especially if it's newly planted.
Okay.
Or you plant it in a little bit colder district.
Otherwise, you're going to lose it, right?
It's a good possibility. I even do, especially if it's been planted this last year or two. But even on established plants, I still tend to do wilt-proof all my broadleaf evergreens.
Or burlap.
It's an insurance program.
Right.
Yeah, burlap. All
right. Anything else? I mean,
the other thing with perennials too, especially if they're newly planted, you planted your garden this year, the freezing doesn't hurt them. It's the freezing thawing, like I mentioned before. So you can do a mulch over the whole bed once the ground freezes.
Okay.
Pine needles, shredded leaves, that type issue. But make sure you put down the Molmax first, because the voles will get in there if you don't.
So you need to make sure those critters don't get in there.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure the cold wind,
especially on the evergreens,
doesn't get in there. All right. Lastly, most important thing to remember about your garden going into the winter.
Just everything I told you, and then just relax and expect you're going to have some losses. That's part of gardening.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, but the main thing is the right plant in the right place. You plant a broadleaf evergreen out in the middle of the field, you're going to most likely lose it because of the wind and the sun. So always plant in the right plant in the right place.
Those you tend to tuck away in the back.
Yeah, a northern or eastern exposure.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
Nice job.